What's up, YouTube? This is I'm gonna start doing some videos in here, and I'd like to. My plan is to kind of be another podcast-ish in the ocean, and bring in some people that I've met through the years that I think are dog is about to knock that over. Louise, let's do this, Fancy. You're doing this too much. Oh, hang on. I need to go over here. And this is the kind of quality you get when you deal with a mechanic who accidentally made a YouTube video a few years ago. People watched it. Now I try to keep people entertained a little bit and help them with things I've learned. Anyways, that's Fancy. We haven't met her yet. I'm going to start bringing in people that I've met through my travels that I have learned a lot from and that have been successful and live prosperous lives and take care of their families and are just good people that I've met. I don't have a guest today. Hopefully, maybe later this week. We'll see if we can get the first one going, and we'll go from there. Anyways, this video, the idea is to kind of get into trucks and businesses and small business and things like that. But today, I'm just here to talk about semi-truck engines and the ones that I've seen work. I get people that ask me about this and that. What works, what doesn't, what to stay away from. I've got a video kind of talking about old mechanical engines, the big cam Cummins, which I've got a couple of those. I've had a bunch of them. They're primitive, they're smoky, they're grumpy engines, but they darn sure get the job done, and they do it for pennies compared to a lot of engines. If you're doing vocational local work, it would be hard for me to turn one down. The problem is the trucks they're in have probably got 1 million miles on them now. They're beat up, they're rough around the edges, and so, but this is like a problem that I'm kind of a spot that I'm in where I'm like, I love my old trucks. They're still old trucks, and sometimes when you're out hammering on a lot of miles, especially when I take my Pete kind of over the road, there's days I wish I had cruise control and just the modern creature comforts. However, the old trucks still definitely get me excited to go trucking. But anyways, big cam, same thing with B model cats, wonderful engine. But the trucks they're in are getting old and tired, and unless you got the time and the money to sit there and fiddle fart around with little worn out crap, and that you can have a rebuilt engine and a rebuilt transmission and rebuilt rear ends, and you're going to, either way, when those trucks get that many miles, they'll nickel and dime you to death on crap in the interior and gauges and window regulators and doors and switches and all of the things that you get into, which is fine. I've put up with that with my trucks right now because I'm not I don't know. I'm kind of a chicken about trucking. It's not my full-time deal, so I don't really want to go into debt for it, but I also kind of got a hankering for a newer truck right now because we've got customers that could be potential good opportunities, and I also want to make sure that my trucks look pretty good. Being professional is something that I care about, and I want to be sure that I can do that to the best ability of what I can afford. But anyways, those are great trucks, especially if you're doing vocational work where you're not going to use cruise control anyways. It's hard to beat those old motors, but out on the highway, and they're so primitive compared to the new stuff. I mean, especially if you do anything in the mountains. The new Jake brakes, like the ISX, is over 600 retarding horsepower. It's insane. I don't know what the Detroit is. It's pretty good too. They do some pretty good Jake braking. But anyways, someone asked me my thoughts on the ISX. They're pretty good motors. I mean, anything that's been in production for 25 years is pretty good. They have their flaws. They're not, they're not the old B models or the old N14s. but they're not bad. And the thing that I preach this all the time is buy stuff with parts and support in your area. You know, the good thing about the ISX, there is parts and support nationwide. You know, you can, and even in a worst case scenario, there is good running junkyard motors stacked up knee deep because they are in fleet trucks, they are in everything. And then you've got, if we're talking newer engines, we've got Detroit came out with the DD series in 2000, and it might have been 9. It followed the 60 series, the 12.7s and the 14 liters. Those were good engines, but they were not designed around emissions equipment. So Detroit needed to design an engine that can handle modern emissions, and they spent like $3 billion. It was like the most, not like, it was the most expensive engine development the world has ever seen. And it's mostly a Mercedes-Benz engine by design. There's many things that it shares with, I think, the OM series Mercedes. I'm not very familiar with the Mercedes. And truth be told, I'm not overly familiar with the DD series either. I've been around quite a few of them, but I'm not an expert by any means, but I can give you a little bit of an insight, hopefully. But they have their issues, but overall pretty good engines. Like, from what I understand, there's quite a few folks that have gotten over 1 million miles emissions intact. That is a huge kind of a breakthrough, I guess. Like, when we first got into emission stuff in the pickup truck world, it went sideways. Like the 6.4 and the early 6.7 Dodges and all that stuff was just unreliable junk. Then Peterbilt introduces the PACCAR engine, and I can't tell you when that came out. I really don't know. I think it was after 2010, because Detroit got bought by Daimler Group, who owns Freightliner and Western Star, and they decided, well, we're going to keep Detroit only in our trucks. You got to find another option for another engine, because at this point, Cat's out of the market. Detroit will not sell to PACCAR, who owns Kenworth and Peterbilt, and yeah, Mack has been bought by Volvo, so they're just a rebadged Volvo essentially. International is building engines for themselves, but in that period of time they were so terrible nobody wanted them anyways. And so then, I don't know all the politics behind it, but PACCAR, it's not a Scania engine. I think it's a MAN engine. Or, there's another European engine builder that escapes my mind. I can see their independent valve covers, but I can't remember. It's not Scania. I think it's MAN. Someone can put in the comments what it is. Somebody knows. I know what it is. I just can't think of the name. The PACCAR engine, the PX13 specifically, is built by, I think it's MAN. MAN engines in Europe. It's another European style engine. It has its flaws. I've heard that parts availability is not as great as the Cummins or the Detroit, but I've had a lot of customers that really enjoy their Detroits. The DD13s and the DD15s, they're good on fuel and such like that. I know some guys that say there are fixes to the PACCAR, but you got to be a little bit savvy and potentially not in an emissions regulated area to make your life easier. And then you've got the ISX, which is Cummins. Cummins has sold the PACCAR for a long time, and you can still buy a Cummins in a Freightliner. So you can opt out of the Detroit and opt in a ISX, as well as international too. You can get an ISX. You cannot get an ISX in a Mack or a Volvo. I believe the D13, which is Volvo's common engine, to be pretty decent. I mean, you never hear anything about it because there's not many guys logoing with Volvos. There's no cattle haulers running Volvos. There's no farmers hardly running Volvos. So you just don't hear about them. And that's not always bad. No news is good news sometimes because, you know, you just, I can't speak much on them. I just don't know much about them. But the fact that I don't know much about them I learn a lot about things that are junk because that's what people call us about and we get to deal with. But our industry isn't, Volvo's very much so dominate the line haul, and we don't have any line haul customers. So I know one guy that's got a Volvo truck. I think it's been good to him, but he quit paying his bills, so I don't know where that truck's at, nor do I care. But anyways, get all busy with my hands here. The brain dead. ISX, good engine. The design started with the Signature series, that's what they called it first. That's essentially an ISX. Then we go Signature series, which had non-VGT turbo and no EGR. Then we get into the ISX, early VGT turbo, which I think was, they changed the actuation. I can't remember. Well, now they're all electronic actuation. I believe they used to be oil actuated. Maybe, I gotta think. Anyways, and their fueling system, I can't remember what they call it. It was interesting. It wasn't a regular common rail. It had different metering valves for different banks. It was pretty good, pretty easy to diagnose. They weren't, the ISX is not known to be a high mileage motor. However, parts are reasonable, rebuilds are reasonable, and if you take good care of them, they will go a long ways. But they do have some liner issues here and there. You know, you gotta watch. Oh man, there's a engine builder down south, and I watch him on TikTok. What the heck is his name? Excalibur Equipment. Anyways, that guy knows his motors. He's a good one to talk to, but he's a cat guy, and you're going to get biased from the cat guys. So ISX begins because the N14 was primitive, couldn't keep up with the modern emissions requirements, so the N14 had to die, which is unfortunate because they were super reliable. And so we get the ISX. The series of ISX is known by the type of computer they use, so like the CM870s and the CM2850s, and there's a whole bunch of them, but it's kind of how you tell the series of the ISXs. Then they went common rail, I believe, after 2010. Got rid of the older style fuel system. And but they're good motors. They're nothing to hide from. You just gotta take care of them. But like anything, you know, you hear about all these horror stories of ISXs. There are millions of those things on the road. Millions of them. You're gonna have some that didn't go well, and you're gonna have someone throw a fit on the internet about how much of a piece of crap it was. And the trucks that are great, wonderful engines that go a million miles in company trucks that the driver doesn't care about, you never hear about, you know. So wouldn't be afraid of the ISX. I want an ISX right now, just mostly for the Jakes, because we run the high country and the Jakes are insane. I wouldn't mind a DD15. You know, I've heard that if you were to do the non-emission stuff, which I'm not condoning or recommending or any of that, I've heard that the DD15 is kind of more of a pain. There's a lot of support for the ISX. But anyways, I'm not going to rabbit trail down non-emission stuff. I gotta be careful. But anyways, that's one thing though you got to keep in mind compared to the old ones. If you're going to stay emissions intact, you're going to be servicing your DPF filter and things like that. So keep that in mind. But anyways, so yeah, the Peterbilt and Kenworth now you're offered the PACCAR, the MX13, or the ISX15, or the X15 is what they call it now, or the X12. I believe there's a new X12 coming out, but I don't know much about it. It's not on the market yet, so I do not know. The old X12 is a common rail version of the M11 and the ISM, which were pretty good motors. They were never known for big power, but they're decent little 11, almost 12 liter engines. ISX is not known for fuel mileage compared to the Detroit, but they do have an efficiency series, which is better, but you know, everybody does this. They buy it, not everybody, but you buy big horsepower trucks and then they try to compete with line haul guys, and you can't. You're going to burn so much fuel and the rates are too low. If you're going to do that kind of work, you need to stay 450 horse or below and pull some MPGs, run 65, 70 mile an hour and make your living that way. And if you have enough self-control to do that on the high-paying loads, then you can really stack some cash. That's one thing I've learned. Man, as soon as you break 70 miles an hour on a semi-truck, you start drinking some fuel. It's amazing what that threshold is. If you can be patient enough and set cruise at 65, it's a huge difference in fuel. So always be mindful of that. The new thing too, the semi-trucks, the automatic or automated transmissions have surpassed manual transmissions in resale value. So that's pretty wild. There are people that thought that would never happen. And I never thought it would never happen, but I guess I wasn't ready for it yet. But I'm not gonna lie, we do a lot of work in Denver and in the traffic. There's times where if a genie in a bottle would have changed me transmissions for an automated, I might have done it. You just get tired of standing on the clutch and shifting and all that stuff. But it's another computer, it's another set of actuators. However, truth be told, computers are smarter than humans as far as, let's say, shift accuracy. And so you're going to see, and like I know customers that have the automated transmissions and get 500,000 miles out of a clutch, and they don't do anything to that transmission. That's wonderful. So the truth is there in that, and the modern driver did not grow up on a farm, and so that you're teaching them to drive a manual transmission at 25 or 30 or 40 years old whenever they start driving truck, and it's tough, and you're going to be hard on the truck. And so the automated, you push drive and you push the gas pedal and you go to work. And so that reality is there. I wouldn't steer away from one, but I would be cautious of the work that you do. That's my thing. I don't know if I want an automated transmission because I do a fair amount of off-road driving, field hauling and mountain hauling, and there's just not that transmission doesn't dominate the heavy vocational world like that yet, and so I'm leery to jump in feet first. And the other thing too is we're on the not tail end, but we're about 15 years into the most efficient development of automated transmissions. The early ones, kind of junkers. They were primitive and clunky and would lose themselves in timing and could be a real pain. The newer ones are far better. Like Detroit makes their own transmission now. You buy the Detroit, get the DT12 transmission with it, and they've got different ratios for what you're doing. And for some reason, and I do not know why, but a lot of these line haul trucks are direct drive, which is no overdrive, but they go to like a 264 rear end gear to maintain at 65, 70 miles an hour. I have no idea what the benefit is there. I don't know if it has to do with transmission heat or reliability. Your overdrive gear is always your weakest gear in the transmission. It's the smallest, and so it's always the weakest. But they still make that transmission with an overdrive, and so I don't know why they do that. And then you see the automatic world, like we go Allison, and we look at the pickup trucks these days, 2 overdrives and 3 sometimes, and then they're running 455s instead of 370s with 1 overdrive, and so I don't know why they do that, but I wouldn't steer away from the ISX. I wouldn't steer away from the DD15. People give me a lot of backlash for this, but I really. She's about to knock. What are you doing? Hi. Can I help you? Oh, I know. Anyways, I've got a lot of customers with Cat engines. We've been around a lot, and I love Cat. I love their equipment. I love the engines. But I just don't know, for most applications, if they're worth the money that you're going to pay to have them. They have become the popular thing to have, kind of the niche thing. They are big horsepower. It doesn't take any sort of brain power to make them big horsepower. But big horsepower drinks fuel, They are extremely expensive rebuilds. Cat hasn't been in the truck market for 15 years. Cat dealers do not want to rebuild your truck engine. Um, so you're going to have to find these other builders. You're going to deal with independent engine guys, which it's not always bad. Most of the time, they're not going to offer warranty like Cat will, or the dealer. You can take your ISX to any dealer in the United States still and get a good Cummins warranty with it and get good Cummins parts and be 1/3 to half as much as the Cat rebuild. So that's something to consider. I personally am not going to pay. I'd love to own a Cat truck. I love the way they drive. It's really hard to not like the way they drive. They do drive wonderful. Their Jakes are very subpar compared to the ISX, but they're fun driving trucks, and just the way the Cat pulls it's something. But the reality of it is expensive rebuilds, hard to find people that are good rebuilders, and then warranty stuff. Like I said, you can drop your ISX off at any international Freightliner or PACCAR dealer in the United States, and they can rebuild it, give you a good Cummins warranty, and send you down the road in probably a week or less. So that's always something to keep in mind. I wouldn't pay anything more for a Cat truck or Cat powered truck. Oh, that's another one. Cat trucks, the Cat branded trucks, they're like the CT880s or something. That's not a Cat engine. That's a rebranded International M13, which is a total pile. So I don't know how in the world they ended up pairing when Cat had the capabilities of a Tier 4 final engine already in their equipment, and they decided to pair with a Navistar and use the N13 rebranded as a Cat. And yeah, I would like to have a Cat C13. I've heard they're reliable, good on fuel. Yeah, they don't have very good Jakes, but you don't pay that much for the trucks with those engines, so that's always a decent option. I think I'm going to try to stay focused here and kind of summarize the video. ISX, don't be afraid of them. I wouldn't spend more money for the Cat. I wouldn't do it. I like them. If you got a good deal on a Cat truck or a truck with a Cat engine, I guess I wouldn't pass it up either. But I would not pay. There's guys that pay double the money to run a Cat for. There was a time where Cat was the big puller on the highway, and they still can be. But you can buy an ISX or a Detroit, 600 horsepower, and they will run with those trucks. So, yeah, for what it's worth, it's hard to beat Cat's quality for sure. But the trucks have become niche market trucks. People buy them to tell people that they have a Cat and make it their whole personality. So don't be that guy. But yep, ISX isn't too bad. Detroits aren't too bad. I mean, everything's got their horror stories. You get on the internet and start looking for problems with, and you will find the worst case scenario every single time. So talk to people that have them, fleet owners and stuff, and see what they won with and what they didn't. I wouldn't steer away from the PACCAR. Man, this stuff is so variable to me. Everything's got its price to me. Everything. I would drive a 6.4 for the right price. I mean, it just is what it is, or a 5-liter Nissan if the price was right. But yeah, the PACCAR is not bad either. It's just same thing. There's lots of parts and support. I've heard that people have had a harder time getting parts for those than the ISX or the X15. I've heard that some people wrestle with Detroit parts sometimes, but I've also heard that the Detroits being phenomenal engines for 750, sometimes 1,000,000 miles, and that is wonderful. I was quite sure for a long time we'd never see that engine life again. So I hope this is helpful. I hope you tune in for our next show. It's so hard to not be just tacky. Stuff sounds tacky to me because I'm not like a YouTuber, but I am. But anyways, I want to bring some people in that I enjoy their information and can hopefully help you be successful. But anyways, thanks for watching.